Cha. Nice personality to consider. Maricha and Subahu, brothers. Both brothers were the sons of Tataka, and Tataka was the daughter of the Yaksha Suketu. Now from the Bhagavatam story, history of Dhruva Maharaj, there's some encounter with the Yakshas, because the Yakshas killed his stepbrother, and then goes on a big campaign to wipe out the Yakshas. So there we hear about the Yakshas. There's not a lot of description of who they are, etc. There's their capital city, and a little investigation in who are the Yakshas. They powerful, warrior-like personalities that have mystic powers, and they're under the care of treasure of Sarah, but on the other hand, they don't. On the dark side of how they do, they are. But it's looking not so clear about the Yakshas in general. They seem to be able to move planetary travel, habit on Earth. At the same time, they have resident Bhuvar Loka. Often what's at Bhuvar Loka, realm of Yakshas, realm of the Rakshas, along with other. So Yaksha Suketu was childless, and he underwent extended austerities, had a boon from Brahma to have a child, son, but Brahma appeared before him and informed him, very beautiful daughter, and very strong, out of the strength of 1,000 elephants. Sure enough, after some time, Yaksha had a child, and he named the child Tataka. Explicitly, daughter of a Yaksha. In the course of time, she married demon Tataka, Sunda. And Sunda and Tataka had sons. Sons were Maricha and Subahu. Maricha being described as being broad shoulders and very powerful. And Subahu was known as a very powerful wrestler. Now, the relationship between Maricha and Ravana is not by blood or by family, but by age. He was like Ravana's uncle. Weren't from the same lineage, but like elderly, and therefore Maricha, in one sense, looked up to. But had a not paying attention to anybody's seniority or anything like that. So he was in his service. Sometime after Sunda and Tataka became married, Sunda was on a program of visiting ashrams of sages in the forest and killing them, having fun doing it. And one time he had the same intention with Agastya, and that was a mistake. When he went to attack Agastya, Agastya reduced Sunda to ashes. And when it became known to his wife, Tataka, and her two sons, Maricha and Sabahu, that Agastya had harmed, destroyed their husband or father, they pledged to get revenge, destroy his hermitage. So they made a plan, and together, all three of them attempted to kill Agastya. And as they were approaching Agastya, the rishi knew what they were up to, and he didn't kill them, but he cursed Tataka because she was beautiful and powerful, become a man-eater, a rakshasi, with grossly distorted features, a monstrous shape. And Maricha was cursed, become a demon. So, as a demon, because of his demoniac tendency, Maricha, one of his pleasures was serving sages, attacking them, killing them, and spoiling their. So that was the spoiling of the sacrifices, was the problem Vishwamitra had with two of them. And it was on that basis, at least ostensibly, presumably, to have Ram and Lakshman come, have Ram come and destroy Maricha and Subbahu because they were regularly defiling their sacrifices. And on the way to his ashram, Vishwamitra's ashram, they describes the travel of the three, Vishwamitra, Ram, and Lakshman. And they come across a forest that doesn't look like everything else. It's desolate and screeching of animals and kind of scary kind of description. And Ram asks, "What's this place? Why is it so forsaken?" And Vishwamitra gives the history that previously this forest where Tataka resided was blessed by Indra to become two flourishing kingdoms, Malada and Kurusha, due to the Sari accepting the sins from his having killed Vritrasura. The description in the Bhagavatam is after killing Vritrasura, Indra was feeling terrible, and sin personified was chasing him everywhere. And he went everywhere. So finally he hid himself inside a stem of a lotus where he underwent austerities for 1,000 years under the protection of the goddess of Lakshmi. And further his purification, he had Brahmanas perform an abhishek. And the water of that abhishek fell in this forest. In that sense, sins of Indra for having Vritrasura, killed Vritrasura, was accepted by this forest, and Indra was very grateful to the forest. Benediction, forest. Time it will become place of happened. But the flourishing kingdom situation changed when Tataka decided to live. He decided to live there because Agastya used to perform austerities in the forest, but gradually became abandoned pretty quickly because he was a terrorist. People didn't want to be anywhere near her. And Vishwamitra intentionally brought Ram and Lakshman to this forest for the purpose of slaying Tataka. Okay. There's a little ring back. Can you fix that? And So this was Vishwamitra's intention from the beginning. He specifically mentioned Maricha and Sabahu to Dasarath because they were defiling the sacrifices of the sages. But the mother of Maricha and Sabahu was another big problem. And so he brought them there, and he indicated he wanted them to slay Tataka. So Ram twanged his bowstring. Apparently whenever Ram twanged his bowstring, same thing, we hear this many times, made such a loud sound and a piercing sound, etc. It woke up Tataka, she was asleep, and she became enraged that somebody was in her forest, and she came rushing in her gigantic, powerful as 1,000 elephants, misshapen, humongous form, and started screaming. And she had mystic powers. So one of those mystic powers mentioned in Valmiki Ramayana, she created a blinding dust storm for 1 hour. So they couldn't see so well. Blinding dust storm. And during the dust storm, or as it subsided or something, she then sent a tremendous shower of stones upon the two brothers. But then Ram fired arrows, and somehow the stones were repelled, made into powder, into dust. Then Ram, with his arrows, cut off the demoness's arms with his arrows. And when her arms were severed, she was making a loud moaning sound. Lakshman then cut off her ears and nose. Sounds familiar, right? Without killing her, they were paining her. She then assumed many different forms, and then she became invisible. And while she was invisible, bewildering them in various ways, throwing showers of stone, but she was still invisible. And at this point, Vishwamitra said, "Don't delay. It's getting towards the evening. Rakshasas become more powerful at night. Deal with her swiftly." And was there a handout about the first demon that Ram killed, and the first demon? Was that a handout? Yes? So you should have received, and if not, you can ask for one. Snehavali can provide you with one. A document that gives the answer to the question, is there some significance behind the fact that the first demon that Ram killed and the first demon that Krishna killed was a female? We've discussed it previously, so I'm not going to go into it again. But it's a kind of esoteric reason. But he knew, Vishwamitra knew, that Ram was reluctant because of being a civilized person. You don't punish, what to speak of, kill a woman, even for, wrongdoings. But Vishwamitra convinced him. He gave many reasons why don't think like that. I see you're hesitating. Don't think like that. Because she's such a wicked person. She kills and eats sages, and you're to protect the sages. So don't hesitate. And Ram's very simple answer was, my father ordered that whatever you say I should do, and so you say, so I shall do. Very simple. We know that there's this discussion in Mahabharata when the Yaksha, turns out he's Yamaraj, comes out of the lake, and the Yaksha asks Yudhisthira several questions. And one of those questions was, what happens when there's some conflicting dharma? You're supposed to do this, and you're supposed to do that. You're supposed to not do this, or supposed to not do that. And what do you do when that happens? How do you make a decision? You're familiar with that question. And so the answer that Yudhisthira gives, that the Yaksha approves, it's very difficult. Yes, it's true. Sometimes there's conflicting laws of Manu to be followed or to not be violated, and it's difficult sometimes. This is one of those. You're not to kill a woman, and Vishwamitra says, kill a woman. So what do? And you follow this for Ram, that which trumps any other consideration is the order of his father. And throughout Ramayana, it's spoken softly or strongly, but a principle of virtue, or those who are civilized and virtuous people, they guide their decisions of their life by those persons who they have accepted in their life that they look up to. And the teaching that we're accustomed to hearing from Prabhupada is the words of the spiritual master are to be taken as one's life and soul. That's Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. In the Bhagavad Gita 241, Vyavasayatmika Buddhi purport. How does one get that Vyavasayatmika Buddhi intelligence? And that's embedded in the purport. Read in the purport and you'll see. And Prabhupada spoke about it. Actually, Prabhupada spoke about it when he was in Vrindavan. In addition to translating Canto 1 Srimad Bhagavatam, he was preparing a Bhagavad Gita commentary or purports that there's a literary term, the compilation of his work that was to be published. There's a name for that. It was stolen in New York, and so he had to redo it. So for a while in New York, he had to create a new Bhaktivedanta purports for Bhagavad Gita. But he started preparing it in India, and he explained at some point in time, while in Vrindavan, and I read his commentary, that the order of the spiritual master is to be taken as one's life and soul. That propelled me to come to the West, because I was feeling reluctant, I was feeling not qualified, and feeling so many things. But I had to take it as my life and soul. It's very strong. We can say that teaching, that instruction, that lesson, catapulted Prabhupada across the ocean to America. It carried him this far, just because of the very powerful lesson that Ram abided by, that's in Ram's Leela. In his case, it's the order of my father. There isn't anything higher for me than that. There may be some other consideration of Dharma, but that trumps all other considerations of Dharma. So Mahajanayena Kata Sampanta, that's the conclusion of Yudhisthira, and that's the conclusion we should try to abide by. So it's important to read the scripture and read it and try to understand it properly under proper guidance, because it tells us the codes of Dharma that should rule our lives. It's relevant, but it's a little bit of a sidebar, but it's relevant. That is, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, there's a teaching that he gave that strikes me as being very significant. He Bhaktisiddhanta wrote that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught in his Shikshastakam the importance of Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. And in India, in Bengal today, there's an emphasis on Nam Sankirtan and an under-emphasis on Harikatha. And that overemphasis on Nam Sankirtan minus Harikatha has resulted in Upasampradayas. people that chant the holy name, but their activities aren't guided. And so the unguided activities become distorted from Lord Chaitanya's teachings, because the teachings are meant to be there along with making the heart pure. So the saying goes like this, that you've heard this. So I'm not saying something you haven't heard. A train moves on 2 tracks. Now they have monorails, but normally a train moves on 2 tracks. And if one of the tracks is missing, it's very difficult to have the train progress nicely. Our host is asking some people to move forward, and I think he wants you to do that. Yeah, I understand why. I'm like speaking it out instead of you're being very gentle and being not so gentle. No, it's okay. I appreciate what you're trying to do, because more people will come. Thank you. That which guides our activities. Kata. Because Harikata will guide your activities. Like this. Should I turn left or right? You're at a crossroads of making a decision about something, and you're not sure whether to turn left or right. So you can pause, but sometimes you have to either turn left or right. Or indecision is another decision. You have to turn left or right. Something you just have to do. So it's good to pause and not just be impulsive and do something. So how to be properly guided? Read Prabhupada's books. And read Prabhupada's books in such a way that you're properly guided. And there's the properly guided all the way to the stage of perfection. Within Prabhupada's books, you read Prabhupada's books carefully. The undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate teachings, Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, which makes abundant reference to so many of our Goswami teachings. Is one of the glorifications of the importance of the writings of Krishnadas Kaviraj in Chaitanya Charitamrita, is he, in simple language, for people who may not know Sanskrit, and now because of gifted by Srila Prabhupada, translated from Bengali, which was Krishnadas Kaviraj was a consummate scholar in Sanskrit, but he wrote Chaitanya Charitamrita in Bengali to make it accessible to people that could read Bengali, but maybe couldn't read Sanskrit. Although I've had Bengalis tell me the Sanskrit is really, the Bengali is really high. It's like, to translate it is very challenging because it's like Sanskrit. But in any case, he took the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, which are embodied in the writings of the Goswamis, which he had learned from Jiva Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami, because they were his contemporaries, who had learned from Rupa Goswami. And it's all it's laid out in Chaitanya Charitamrita. The Abhideya and Prayojana teachings of the Goswamis, which is the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, it's all in a systematic way. Supposing you haven't read the Sandarbhas of Jiva Goswami, read Chaitanya Charitamrita and you'll get a very reasonable and clear picture. Not all on the whole Sandarbhas because they're vast. Or Padyavali by Rupa Goswami, and and other writings and other writings. It's all there. It's all there. It's all there. So read, and even if you don't understand, read and read again. This is Prabhupada's teaching. If you read something in my books you don't understand, read it again. And if you don't understand after reading again, read it again. And continue reading it again, and eventually you'll understand. That was his very clear teaching to us. And, of course, reading in the company of others who they have a taste, a liking for reading. And maybe you'll find some persons that have they live according to those teachings, and they carry those teachings inside. They're a walking example of those teachings. That's really fortunate. But at least it's there embedded in Prabhupada's book. So the way Bhaktisiddhanta writes it is, just as we don't worship Krishna alone, we worship Krishna with Radha. We all know that. But we don't simply chant Harinam without Harikatha. The Nama being Krishna and Harikatha, he explicitly says, that is the Swarup Shakti of Krishna. Because the Vedas are female. And Srimad Bhagavatam and the glories of Krishna, the descriptions of Krishna, or Hari Katha or Krishna Katha, that's Krishna's Swarup Shakti. So we worship together. We chant to make the heart pure, just as Valmiki, he chanted, he's the best of the chanter of Ram's name. Who's better? We could say Hanuman's better. But Valmiki, as far as mortals are concerned, or worldly people, the best of Ram's chanters. But he heard the Katha about Lord Ramachandra, and he was qualified from the chanting, but he had this knowledge revealed to him by the grace of Narada, by the grace of Brahma, Narada's spiritual master, and ultimately by the grace of the Supreme Lord Ramachandra. So, he's teaching us how to make decisions when there's a seeming conflict between something that's to be done and something that's not to be done. You got to make a decision. So the instruction was, kill her because she's to be killed, and gave his reasons. The basis for making that statement is, and Ram accepted. He accepted the reasons, but he accepted because on top of the reasons, if someone else could give some reasons why not. And you have a conflict. We come into situations like that sometimes. You follow the order of your preceptor. His case, it's his father. That's the dharma that he was exhibiting. And so Ram obliged. He killed Tataka. And there's several paintings showing Ram's firing an arrow, piercing her in the chest. And she screamed very loudly as the arrow pierced her chest. He came crashing to the ground. And that was the end of Tataka. Celebrated pastime. First demon killed by Ram. Now, the topic for this evening is Maricha and Subahu. So the arrangement was they went swiftly to Siddha Ashram. Siddha Ashram is the name of the place where Vishwamitra lived. He describes briefly the history. It's called Siddha Ashram because long ago, after Vamana accepted the surrender of Bali Maharaj, he came to this particular place. Lord Vamana came to this place, he sanctified the place. Since then it's been called Siddha Ashram. And this is the place where nearby Subahu and Maricha come every time we do our yagyas. So the instruction was, as you see in the painting, stand guard It's a 7-day yajna, and at any time they could come and be ready, stand guard, be alert, be ready, and protect the yajna if they come. So sure enough, after 7 days of vigil, Maricha and Subahu came, and they attacked the sacrificial arena. Attacked arena means they were desecrating, throwing blood and mucus and stool and bones and, contaminated things on the yajna. But they were ready. They were prepared by Vishwamitra. There's the painting showing he's in his hermitage. In front of him is the yajna. And on the upper left, they're having combat with the two, Subahu and Maricha. And down below in the lower left, they're crashed to the ground dead. But we know that Maricha didn't crash to the ground dead. Maricha was hit with a certain kind of Vayu arrow, and he threw him in the air a distance of 800 miles, and he came landing in the ocean. Another nice painting of the two demons being hit. On the right side is what they were throwing onto the yajna arena, and the brahmanas are going yuck, staying away from the defiled arena. And Subahu we don't hear about Subahu till much later. We're going to read what Subahu describes. I'll summarize it briefly. But Maricha had a second encounter with Ram. The second encounter with Ram was in the Dandak forest. So what Maricha did after he landed in the ocean and survived, he went to recover in Lanka. And he stayed in Lanka for some time. After some time, he and two of his associates, Rakshasas, decided to go back to the Dandak forest. All three of them having a game plan, assume forms of deer. So he became known even when Lakshman saw that golden deer as Maricha because he had a reputation. He, Maricha, and his two friends assumed forms of deer, because Rakshasas can assume different forms. And the sages wouldn't be worried when here comes 3 deer to our forest area. And when they're most unsuspecting, the 3 deer would attack them, kill them, and eat them. And that was their fun. Not very nice, but that's what they did. And so in the course of Ram's being in the forest, remember he was sent to the forest, to the Dandak forest for 14 years. And the whole situation between him and Shurpanakha and Ravana kidnapping Sita and all that, it was just before the 13th year had lapsed. So for 12, almost 13 years, Ram's in the forest. What's he doing? He's going from hermitage to hermitage and giving his association to the sages. Because the sages were desiring, in their meditation, they were meditating on the Lord. And they wanted his presence in their life. So he was fulfilling their desire. Pritranaya sadhunam. That was one of the purposes of Ram's descent, as it's achieved in all of his incarnations. Give association to the saintly people. When Queen Kunti, and Queen Kunti's prayers, speaks of different people have different ideas, O Lord Krishna, of why you appear in this world. Some say this, some say that, some say the other thing. When the last one she comes to is, you've come to deliver the saintly people. Vishwanath Chakravarti says that's the real reason. Because these other purposes could be served by some other method, but he's irreplaceable. So he comes to give his association to the sages. And as he was giving association to the sages in the forest for all that period of time, 12 plus years, one of the times where he was giving his association to sages, Maricha Maricha, with his two buddies, were roaming about as deer. And Ram understood and immediately grabbed his arrows and started firing at arrows. And his two buddies were killed. But Maricha recognized, oh, there's Ramchandra. So he ran. Deer can run very fast. And Ram would never shoot from behind. So he escaped. That was the second time. We'll read. It's really nicely expressed in Ramayana. So then what did Maricha do? He went to live a life of asceticism. He was living in a cave, engaged in practices of austerities and penances. And that's where Ravana comes to find him. Twice, there's a nice painting, that's Maricha on the left, and Ravana in the middle, and his donkey carrier on the right side. Twice Ravana approached Maricha to distract Ram, both with the same game plan, to distract Ram so that Sita could be kidnapped. And the first of those two situations comes after the Shurpanakha is, her nose and ears are cut. She goes to Kara and Dushan, do something, and a whole series of events. And Kara and Dushan and their 14,000 warriors are single-handedly killed by Ram. But one person escaped. And Akampana, who's a relative of Ravan, escaped. And he went, not knowing at all what Ravana would do to him for bringing bad news, but he informed him of the bad news. And Ravana was furious, and I'm going to get him. And Akampana advised, this isn't the best plan, because he's so powerful. I suggest a better plan than just going on a campaign against Ram. And you should make an arrangement for Sita to be kidnapped. It's a suggestion, and Ravana likes the suggestion. So Ravana considers the plan, and he comes to visit Maricha and puts forward his plan to have Sita kidnapped. I want your help. And on the right, that's Maricha. On the left, that's Ravana. And Maricha is going to give some advice. Nice. With great shock and horror, Maricha responded, "Whoever has given you this idea is actually your worst enemy in the guise of a friend. Oh, Ravana, if you try to carry out this foolish plan, it will only result in your own destruction, for Rama has inconceivable prowess on the level of Vishnu himself. Ram is like a fathomless ocean. Crocodiles are his bow, and whirlpools are his mighty arms. The releasing of his arrows are like the constant flow of ocean waves, spreading from shore to shore across the entire battlefield, wherein his enemies drown. O king of the Rakshasas, it would be better, far better, for you to control your wrath and return to Lanka. Enjoy yourself there, along with your wives, and let Rama enjoy with his wife in the Dandak forest. Otherwise, you will unceasingly bring disaster upon your own head." So you see in the painting, the artist has tried to capture Maricha's reminiscence of Ram. That's at the very top. And we see Ravan pondering. So he hasn't made a decision, but he's considering what Maricha said. So he goes back to Lanka. And sometime after he reaches Lanka, so does Shurpanakha. And there we see her in the center. And the 10-headed, 20-armed Ravana is the person who she's speaking to. And at the very bottom of the painting, we see there goes Ravana again to go visit Maricha again. Because she will one class will be dedicated to her. She's an interesting personality. She's really manipulative. She knows his buttons, and she presses his buttons. And her interest is entirely selfish. She lies about what happened. She lies about her motives. And she insults her brother. There's some people I know that are like this. And all she's interested in is revenge. She doesn't care about her brother. She says, I only wanted Sita for you. Look what they did to me because I wanted Sita for you. She's so beautiful. Ravana. All beautiful women are meant for you, Ravana. Take Sita away. And then Ram will lose all his power because he'll be devastated in separation from Sita. Ravana, figure out a way to get Sita separate from Ram. So, the commentary is very simple. Shurpanakha has a desire to enjoy Ram without Sita. Ravana has the idea to enjoy Sita without Ram. Both lose. We don't do either. We try to bring together Sita and Ram, or Radha and Krishna, or the Lord and his Swarup Shakti. They can't be separated anyways. So he comes back again, second time, and again, Maricha tries his best, unsuccessfully, to dissuade Ravana. Now he goes into much more detail the second time. Maricha says, "O king, what is the reason for your early return to my residence?" Ravana replied, "After hearing of Ram slaughtering the Rakshasas at Janastan, I have not found a moment's peace. I have, therefore, made up my mind to kidnap Sita, and I want you to help me. To this end," and he describes his plan of the golden deer, etc., etc., "I will come and kidnap Sita, taking her back to Lanka. Thereafter, when Ram becomes aggrieved and emaciated due to separation from his beloved wife, I will be able to easily slay him." That's the strategy. Hearing the name of Ram, Maricha became greatly fearful. As he thought about Ravana's plan, his mouth became dry. Staring with unblinking eyes, Maricha addressed Ravana with folded hands, "O Lord, if you try to carry out this plan, it surely will cause the destruction of all the Rakshasas and your kingdom of Lanka. Because," he's very bold to speak like this, "because of your lusty nature and ignorance of Ram's prowess, you are foolishly rushing toward your own doom. Please hear from me of Ram's supreme potency before you act blindly, thus bringing about your own destruction. Previously, I used to wander about the earth, club in hand, feeling very proud of my superhuman strength. I've subsisted upon the flesh of rishis in the Dandakaranya forest. Out of fear, Vishwamitra approached King Dasaratha to solicit Ram's help for protecting his sacrificial performances. Thereafter, while Ram guarded Vishwamitra's sacrificial arena, I ignorantly went there with the intention of disrupting the yajna. However, with just one arrow, Ram hurled me 800 miles into the ocean and then killed the other Rakshasas accompanying me. When I regained consciousness, having thus been spared by Ram, I returned to Lanka, but was still not cured of my false pride. Then, with 2 Rakshasa assistants, taking the form of large carnivorous deer with flaming tongues, I returned to the Dandakaranya forest and roamed about, drinking the blood of rishis. As it happened, I came upon Ram, who was wandering in the Dandak forest with Lakshman and Sita. With the bitter memory of my past defeat in my mind, and considering how Ram had accepted a life of renunciation, I was determined to gain revenge. However, when I rushed at him, Ram released 3 arrows. My 2 companions were killed instantly, and I fled for my life. I think my life was spared only because Ram's arrow did not kill one who flees from the battlefield. Ever since that time, I've been consumed with fear of Ram. As a result, my inclination for violence and fighting has vanished. Having given up all malice towards others, I've taken an ascetic life of yoga practice. However, I have failed to obtain peace of mind, for whenever I happen to glance upon a tree, I think that is Ram, dressed in tree bark. Thus, the entire forest appears to have become transformed into innumerable Rams. Because of this, whenever I look anywhere, I become terrified. Sometimes I see Ram in my dreams, and I immediately wake up, my heart thumping in terror. Indeed, I become so afraid of Ram that whenever I hear a word beginning with the letter R, such as Ratha or Ratna, my heart trembles with fear. O king, for your own sake, as well as for mine, I advise you to forget kidnapping Sita. Aside from fearing Ram, why should you perform such a sinful act? There is no offense more punishable than the abduction of another's wife. Remain satisfied with the thousands of wives and save your dignity, fortune, kingdom, and life itself. Pretty bold to speak like that to Ravan. Now, Ravan was in the previous visit. He was very polite and, oh, dear uncle, you're so very kind and very skilled, and I need your help. So be kind upon me. And his mood is different now. He threatened him. Basically, if you don't help me, then I'll kill you right now. Take your choice. So Maricha makes his choice. Flatterers are quite easy to come by, my lord. Rare is that person who will speak unpleasant words that are meant for one's benefit. A minister should always give good advice, even if uncalled for, especially when the king is misguided. Unfortunately, however, it is seen that one who is about to die is never willing to take good advice. So, king, if we carry out your plan, I am certain that both of us will end up dead. Still, I would rather die at the hands of an exalted enemy on the battlefield rather than be killed by you here. Therefore, let us depart at once. And so, some versions say right there, he assumed the form of a deer, or others, Ravan said, oh, now this is the good old Maricha that I'm used to hearing. Let's go. So they get on his carrier, they go to the place, and you know the rest of the story. Here's a nice description of the deer. Maricha's deer form had numerous jewel-like silver spots, with the tips of its horns appearing like sapphires. Its mouth appeared like a pinkish lotus flower, its tail like a rainbow, and its ears were bright blue. Indeed, the magical deer appeared to have been constructed from many varieties of valuable jewels. With a dazzling luster, the deer seemed to illuminate the entire area surrounding the cottage. Sometimes it nibbled at the grass, and sometimes it frolicked among the trees. So, Sita sees. In the background, we see Ram and Lakshman. She's fascinated by the deer, and she falls into the trap. Something that we've mentioned several times. I'll repeat it. It's worth repeating. Many of the commentators on Ramayana from the Sri Vaishnava tradition seems that it follows Yamunacharya's description. At least Govindaraj and others say it in their commentaries consistently. At this particular point, Sita is acting out of character. The character of Sita is whatever Ram wants, that's what I want. That's love. And Sita's thinking now is like a conditioned soul, where whatever I want my friends and companions and partners and people around me to want. It's, enjoying objects of the senses separately. And Lakshman sees the deer, and here's Lakshman pointing to the deer, saying, that's not a deer. That's Maricha. He's, you see the rainbow color in his tail and so forth. So I don't trust it. Ram, you've never seen any entity like that before. Don't go for it. And Sita just ignores. And this is one of those situations where the person who's giving wise advice is disregarded. Like Maricha says to Ravan, so Lakshman says to Sita, you're disregarding good advice because you want something. Because you want something, it overrides good advice. And so she doesn't speak against what he said. She just ignores what he said and goes on speaking to Ram. And even I find this astounding. He said, even if you can't catch the deer, it would be nice if, because you know how much I love being in the forest. When we go back and in 1 year's time, we'll be in the garden area. We can keep the deer as a pet and go visit this beautiful deer. And even if you can't catch the deer, you can kill the deer, and then we can skin the deer, and then together we can sit on the skin of the deer. That's not Sita. That's a materialist. But, she's thinking and saying, so that brings a problem. And so Ram goes forward with the idea that Sita presents. Well, if it's as Lakshman says, it's a Rakshasa, then I'll simply kill it, and everything will be okay if it's a Rakshasa, and if not, it'll be okay. But Lakshman, you stay here and guard Sita. So off he goes, pursuing the deer. And that image on the opening slide is what you see in the upper right. That's the deer being hit by the arrow, becomes a demon as soon as he's hit by the arrow. And as was part of the plan, if Ravana's idea was, if you're hit by an arrow by Ram, then you simply call out in a voice that sounds like Ram's, oh, Sita, oh, Lakshman. Now he's very far away, but, apparently he could speak loudly. And they heard it. And when they heard it, what happened? Sita wanted Lakshman to go rescue Ram. And Lakshman said, Ram, it can't be heard. And, she insults him so badly, he's shocked. And I can't disobey the order of Ram. And if you don't do as I say, I'll take my life. And, she says many heavy things to persuade Lakshman to leave. And so this is not in Valmiki Ramayana, but this painting is showing the Lakshman Rekha. And so off he goes. And when he's gone, Ravana assumes the form of a Brahmana. There we see surrounding the little cottage is its white Lakshman Rekha. And Sita is a perfectly cultured lady. She knows how to receive a sage, and she does all the things that you do when a sage, a sannyasi, a brahmana comes to visit. But he turns out to be not brahmana. And he says, nasty things. Sita told him, for speaking like that, and the rest is history. So now Maricha is now gone. He did his part in Ram Lila. There's a question that arises. Where did Maricha go? What was his destiny? And similarly, those that were killed in the battle in Lanka, where did they go? What was their destiny? And it's not really clearly spelled out, but I came across some commentary that says they attained heaven. And then even one commentary says they attained that part of heaven called Vira Swarga. I never heard about it. Don't ask me more information than what is it, where is it. It's mentioned. Vira is a place where Kshatriyas go when killed in battle. Vira Swarga. It's not a permanent place. Swarga is not a permanent place. Not liberation. But they attained Vira Swarga. So that's Maricha. So in one last comment, there's in Ramayana, one of the 18 cardinal teachings, one of the documents that was circulated, speaks that in order to get shelter, one requires an intermediary, at least that's how it's translated. One requires a representative of the Lord to bring one to the Lord. And Hanuman commonly is pointed to as that person. So in contrast to Maricha, who was very much afraid of Ram, Sugriva was also very much afraid of Ram. He was afraid of Ram because of being traumatized by Bali. And when he saw Ram and Lakshman, he was fearful, not trusting. And by the intermediary service of Hanuman, he was brought into a relationship of friendship. He became a devotee by the grace of Hanuman. And in contrast, Maricha didn't have such a person. He had only fear without an understanding of who Ram is. He understood his power. And, A or B. A, understanding how powerful is Ram. When he went to the Panchavati, appeared as a deer, he could easily have said, Ram, please give me protection. My wicked counterpart, Ravana, wants to kill me if I don't cooperate with him. Please protect me. What's Ram going to do? Then we heard the teaching. He'll give shelter to anyone who takes shelter of him. He would have protected him. So he didn't do that. Why didn't he do that? He could have done that. And he didn't have Hanuman. He didn't have someone to plant the seed of bhakti to teach him the principle of taking shelter. Even though it's like common sense. Here's somebody powerful. Here's somebody more powerful. The more powerful is a virtuous person. Take shelter of the more powerful virtuous person. And because they're powerful, they'll extend their protection. He didn't do that. Then why, here's another one. Why did he call out, oh, Sita, oh, Lakshman? Why did he do that? That was part of Ravana's plan. Why did he fulfill Ravana's plan? Because Ravana's plan meant abducting Sita, which was very sinful. So why did he comply with Ravana's plan? And the answer is given. He wanted to see Ravana delivered. I mean, one was revenge. You're going to kill me? I'll see that you get killed. Because Ram will kill you. You take Sita, you'll be killed. He wanted to see him. He wanted revenge. And another is he had affection like others that were being cooperative with Ravan. They wanted his well-being. So his well-being is if Ram kills him. He wanted Ravan to be killed, so he cooperated with his plan. He didn't have to do that. Could have just been shot by an arrow by Ram and be killed by Ram, which was better than being killed by Ravana. But he wanted Ravana to be delivered. To speak about these kinds of things, I've often contemplated when our acharyas explain these things, do they really mean that this thought crossed his mind saying, you know what, I'll call out, oh, Sita, oh, Lakshman, because I want Ravan to be delivered. Not necessarily that was his thought process. He was contemplated and therefore he did what he did because he wanted Ravana to be delivered. Or more, just subtle or not explicit. But it fits because before there's any action, there's some contemplation. Thinking, feeling, willing, acting. So, what are the contemplations of a person that does X, Y, and Z things in the pastimes of the Lord? One can say, another way of answering this is it's all inspired by the internal potency, because the internal potency of the Lord brought Ram to descend, and the internal potency of the Lord brought Ram to destroy Ravana. And all those that were giving trouble for the demigods. That was his pledge. They asked, he pledged. He was fulfilling his pledge. He did, Maricha did what he did to help fulfill the plan of the Lord. Because the Lord could have delivered Ravana in any number of different ways, but that fit his Leela. And to teach lessons. This goes back to a very nice prayer by Hanuman, a prayer that it's worth meditating on from different angles. There's in chapter 19 of Canto 5, there's some prayers by Hanuman to Ram. Toward the very beginning of Canto 19, or chapter 19. Because Hanuman, according to Srimad Bhagavatam, he resides for the duration of the universe in one of the Varshas in Jambudvip. Varsha means tract of land, and one of the one of the 9 tracts of land in Jambudvip is Kim Purusha Varsha. Kim Purusha Varsha is the Varsha tract of land where Hanuman resides with other Ram Bhaktas, and he's just engaged in singing the glories of Ram. So it's in the section that's describing the Vedic cosmology, Canto 5, Chapter 19. So it's describing Jambudvip and the areas in Jambudvip, and Kim Purusha Varsha is one of them. So he says, Hanuman says, the Lord appeared not only to kill Ravan, the wicked demon, but also to teach lessons to mankind. And Ramayana is teaching lessons to mankind, how to go about taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. And you need a devotee. You need a Hanuman or someone who's going to give bhakti, Ram bhakti, or Krishna bhakti. We need a teacher, spiritual master, and other categories of representatives of the personality of Godhead that are carrying Krishna bhakti or Ram bhakti, and they can pass it on. And then one can take shelter without it. And the other types of purposes of the Lord, like killing Ravana, you may be an instrument for that. But to be an instrument of the plan of the Lord, you need that association as part of the process of surrender. It's a big, big picture of what Ramayana is. So that's the end of Maricha. And I'm thinking tomorrow morning we'll take some time to discuss the some of the details behind the appearance of Lord Ramachandra. And there's different teachings and lessons there. Let's see if there's some discussion. I see in the back there's a hand. On the other side. We'll come to you next.
Maharaj, Hare Krishna, thank you so much for the wonderful description of Maricha. Maharaj, my question is related to the destination of Maricha. And yeah, you mentioned, about this Veer Swarga, and you don't have references. I understand that.
I don't have details of what is it, where is it.
Yeah, but my question is, I think if I heard correctly, Maharaj, I may be wrong. In one of the previous classes, you mentioned a reference in Srimad Bhagavatam. And I read the Lord Ramachandra's chapters in Canto 9 afterwards, but maybe I missed it or I heard incorrectly, but did you mention that there was some reference to this destination in Bhagavatam?
I don't recall making reference to Bhagavatam about it.
Okay.
It's commentary, but my recollection at this moment is it's from the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas who made commentary on Ramayana. Not Srimad Bhagavatam.
Thank you, Maharaj.
I never heard of this term before. But the question came up. When questions come up, it's like, just follow the thread and see if you can find out where the thread comes from. That's my recollection at this moment of where that reference comes from.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Okay. Over on the other side, in the corner back there.
Maharaj, thank you so much. Actually, I had the same question, why Maricha has to shout. You have answered that question. So, why Rama has to kill Maricha? Because Sita wanted a live deer, right? So, at what point Maricha has been killed? Why? At what point deer was killed, basically?
Okay, simple. Ram followed the deer and followed the deer and followed the deer and followed the deer, and the deer kept being elusive. And then Ram concluded, this is not a deer after all. It's a Rakshasa, so let me kill it. That's simple. It's not a deer at all, it's a Rakshasa, so let me kill it. And so he killed it. In the front, there's one of the Matajis.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, very nice seeing you again today. Maharaj, can I ask you a question related to Srila Prabhupada?
You try.
Okay. Guru Maharaj, it's really an honor for me to ask this question to you. So, can you please, share with us a moment that you really, that you cherish, probably with when with Srila Prabhupada? It could be anything, Maharaj. And also, my second question is, outside of chanting Hare Krishna, which of the activities did Srila Prabhupada really, enjoyed, or was Srila Prabhupada's favorite activities? Cooking, food, kirtan, book distribution, devotee association, temple going, or preachings? What was Srila Prabhupada's favorite activity?
All of the above.
All of the above? All of the above,
Prabhu
Maharaj?
At different times, to encourage, Prabhupada was a nourisher of bhakti.
Mm-hmm.
When he saw somebody liked any one of those things, he would nourish their bhakti. He would say, this is the most important. What was most important to him was nourishing bhakti in his followers, and in everybody. And he had different ways of going about that, because bhakti is the means of A and B becoming happy, and he wanted people to be happy. And it's the way of dissolving the misery, the affinity for illusory happiness, because it's chasing after illusory happiness that doesn't really exist. It keeps people bound. He wanted people to not be bound to that illusory pursuit of illusory happiness. So he would nourish bhakti for those two reasons. It finishes their misery and it brings real happiness. And he would nourish bhakti. That was his here's a nice example. It may answer one of your questions, first of your questions. I wasn't there for this particular event, but I was told this event many times by the Radha Damodar party members. You're familiar with Radha Damodar party, right?
No, Maharaj.
No? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Once upon a time, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, being the hero that he was, he had been Prabhupada's personal secretary and GBC for all of India. And India was like bursting at the seams. But Tamal Krishna Maharaj wanted relief from that service, and he chose to ask Prabhupada, can I take leave of my service and go to the rest and travel to the west and travel around and make devotees and distribute your books. There's some passage of time, and he started doing like that, and he brought before Prabhupada some number of shaved-headed, smiling, bright brahmacharis, and Prabhupada said, yes, you can do that service. It became the Radha Damodar bus party. The Radha Damodar deities were deities that Vishnu Jan Swami was the worshipper of, and Vishnu Jan Swami was a dear friend of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, who, while Tamal Krishna Maharaj was in India, Vishnu Jan Swami was traveling around with some brahmacharis in a bus, and he personally worshipped Radha Damodar. So the two joined forces. This charismatic singer, devotee maker Vishnu Jan Swami, and the super organizer Tamal Krishna Maharaj. They joined forces, and it became the Radha Damodar party. And it expanded to 7-8 buses, crisscrossing all around America with bus leaders, and and some of them were primarily engaged in Sankirtan, just congregational chanting here and there. Some were a mix of Sankirtan and book distribution. Some were primarily book distribution. But there was, so according to nature, different persons were engaged. And they all met together when Prabhupada came to visit America. The converging place was Atlanta. So Prabhupada visited Atlanta Temple. Temple room, which is kind of tiny, was packed to the ceiling with brahmacharis. In the end of class, Prabhupada, what pleases you the most? Book distribution, because there's book distributors, and Prabhupada's a nourisher of bhakti. That's what he would do. So there was every expectation is which pleases you the most is book distribution. And one could argue with anecdotal examples. Prabhupada especially liked book distribution, the publishing and the distribution, following Bhakti Siddhanta. He was a follower of Bhakti Siddhanta. So Prabhupada didn't say, distribute my books. He said, when you become Krishna conscious, that will please me the most. And everyone was, what? We got to become Krishna conscious now. Look at this. Prabhupada.
Yes, Srila Prabhupada is too perfect, Maharaj.
He was expert.
Yeah, yes, definitely. We totally agree.
So he was nourishing bhakti. No, they were expecting X and they didn't get X. They got bhakti. But sometimes Prabhupada would say, deity worship. Sometimes Prabhupada would say, prasadam distribution. Prabhupada would sometimes say, teaching Bhagavad Gita. Sometimes Prabhupada would say, taking care of children. Sometimes Prabhupada would say, creating simple living, high thinking. Sometimes Prabhupada would say, according to what one's service was, you're doing the most important service. He would say it or put it in writing. He was nourishing the bhakti of the bhaktas.
Thank you very much, Guru Maharaj.
Someone else? Up front?
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. So you said Sugriva and Maricha both had
Sabahu.
no, the fear of Lord Ram.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay,
so
okay.
Sugriva and Maricha both
Okay,
had
okay.
fear.
Yeah.
Sugriva had Hanuman, so he could approach Hanuman to take shelter of the Lord. Maricha had fear, but he did not had Hanuman. Did he try to find anyone or approach someone who could assist him in taking shelter of Lord Ram?
Yeah, no, he's off in a cave hiding. He was just in fear. He didn't think of asking, trying to find somebody that can give me bhakti. And he didn't have the good fortune of a bhakta finding him either.
Thank you.
Behind you to this side.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you so much for the wonderful lecture. I had one question about Lord Ram holding his father, the King Dashrath, in high esteem.
Yes.
You mentioned about how it is a great virtue to hold one person, that is your last word in everything. How he followed his father's word above everyone else. And we also know about how we should follow the word of our spiritual master. My question is, at what point in your life do you choose such a person to hold above everything else? And how do you do it?
At what point and how?
That you see a person who is extremely
But
worthy to be followed.
in principle, we're servants, but souls are. Nature, the constitutional position. I mean, it's Prabhupada's term. It means we are. We serve. And it's natural to serve one who one looks up to. You know who Burijan Prabhu is? You've heard his name?
No, Maharaj, I'm sorry.
Burijan Prabhu is he's a wonderful Brahminical Vaishnava. He started the VIHE. You know what the VIHE is? He started it. You know what Bhakti Shastri is, right?
Yes.
He started it. You know what Bhakti Vibhav is, right? He started it. He's written his Surrender Unto Me, which is fruit of 13 years of study Bhagavad Gita, to give the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Not like another commentary, but the essence of Bhagavad Gita. Surrender Unto Me. I did the same thing. He's doing the same thing now with the 12 cantos of Bhagavatam. So, he's a very exceptional Vaishnava, in my estimation. He's a householder, 2 grown children, outstanding Vaishnava. And recently he was, I wasn't participating, but I heard from one who was participating in a seminar given to the Russian leadership. They called it something council, Vaishnava Council or something. He was one of the invited speakers. And one of his messages is, our role as leaders is to encourage people, this is the nurturing part, to take shelter of something greater than you. Now, it's natural to take shelter of something greater than you. And ideally, with something that's greater is the greatest. It's superlative great. So, asamurdva, no one is greater than and equal to Krishna. So take shelter of Krishna, but something that's look up to, it's natural because we're servants. As part of a leader, whether it's administrator in a temple or just amongst friends, you have a friend. You assist your friend to be encouraged to look up to those who are higher than you are. It's the same principle as this principle of Ram, because Ram is in his father's case, it's his father, but it's a principle that comes again and again, again and again, again and again, and again and again in the Ramayana. And that is, be submissive to elders who carry wisdom, or be submissive to the wisdom of the elders. So your question is, how do you go about it? It's from the heart. It's quite natural. And when you find someone that you look up to, you'll hear from them and abide by it. And then something that I learned in the early days of my Krishna consciousness, I wasn't such a good judge of who's amongst the Vaishnavas, the devotees of Prabhupada, who's really a qualified person to follow. I say that because it was about 3 months into my stay as a new devotee in the Boston Temple that one of the persons who I looked up to left. Just like, oof. And I was really shocked because I was looking up to this person. Wow, he's really good. This and this and this. And he just left. And then I realized I really didn't have the qualification to know who are those persons to be looked up to. It was a wake-up message. It didn't deter me from the principle because it's a principle. But when you find persons who you look up to, follow them. So when does it happen? When it moves your heart to hear someone who's worthy. And then when you become more knowledgeable in Scripture, then you'll have better understanding of, according to Scripture, what are the boundaries or the qualification, the symptoms of one who is worthy to be followed. It's read in Bhagavad Gita 3 times, and it's in the Scriptures multiple places. How do you tell the nature of a self-realized soul, etc.? How do they walk? How do they sit? How do they talk? That section. When you find such a person, you follow them. And when until you find such a person, you follow the principle that there, at least in Scripture, there are ideal persons. And each of us may have our heroes. One of my early heroes in Krishna consciousness, Prahlad Maharaj. I just heard from lectures, and then Prahlad Maharaj became a hero. And then this, Krishna reciprocated with. Prabhupada published this little, it was Back to Godhead magazine. That was the only public literature, book distribution literature that we had in the beginning. Then came another one. It was a little pamphlet called Teachings of Prahlad Maharaj. And I was like jumping up and down. My hero. And I read it. I loved passing it out. And so then there may be other devotees that resemble the characteristic that you find in Prahlad Maharaj, or other persons who become heroes for you, or exemplars, or those who you look up to, and you go that direction. And at some point, those who you directly feel there's Krishna connection when I'm with this person, then you look up to them. By that time, you've become a little familiar with Prabhupada's teaching. You have become attached to Prabhupada, and you hear about Diksha and all that, and then you want to hear from one who's an exemplary follower of Prabhupada and his teaching. So when that happens, that's where you take shelter. It's quite natural. You want to know how it happens? It's quite natural. You follow the bhakti process given by our founder Acharya. That's for members of ISKCON. You follow the bhakti process as given by our founder Acharya, and read his books and chant with attention. The heart becomes cleansed. We have then some guiding principles of how to discern who is a worthy person for me to take shelter of. Up to.
Thank you so much, Maharaj.
Okay, question over here in the front.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj, I was reading that document 18 Cardinal Teachings
Yeah.
of Ramayana,
Uh-huh.
and in that section it also says number 7 is the exposition of personalities who are unworthy of helpless and exclusive surrender. And
You're
one
going to
of,
speak into the microphone so remote people can hear you. You have to us in the room. The remote people. have to
okay,
hear
yeah. So this exposition of personalities who are unworthy of helpless and exclusive surrender. In this, one of the example is given of Dashratha. And we discussed this previously in the commentaries, what the Acharyas, Sri Vaishnava Acharya says about Dashratha. But my question is, it says here in the heading that they are unworthy of surrender. And I am thinking of Mat Sharana quality, which is the primary characteristic of a devotee. So now, how can we understand Dashratha not having that quality of surrender? And Sri Vaishnava Acharyas are emphasizing on that part. And last year we discussed in one of the lecture that Dashratha should go to hell because he didn't give a kingdom or he listened to Kaikeyi.
This gets into, you understand the question? They're shaking their head like this. They're not shaking their head like this. So say it without reading it. Say what your heart is pondering.
Okay. I would like to know regarding Dashrath, where Sri Vaishnava Acharyas say that he is unworthy of helpless surrender. And we in our philosophy discuss that Mat Sharana is the primary characteristic of
Yeah.
a devotee.
Okay, so if I understand your question correctly, the answer comes in terms of rasa and lila, meaning it's not that Dasarath was anything other than fully surrendered. However, both in terms of rasa as parental affection, he has affection for Ram like a parent has for a child. And parents naturally feel toward their children the sense of the dependency of the children upon them as the parent. It's a natural parental affection. And so he didn't want Ram to be at risk, as much as Nanda and Jasoda didn't want Krishna to be at risk. So they made arrangements so that Krishna wouldn't be at risk. And Krishna took advantage of this arrangement and that arrangement to put himself at risk to perform his Leela. So why they're making emphasis, it seems to be at the heart of your question, that he's not eligible for exclusive shelter, is a rasa matter and a lila matter. He is, for that matter, he's an eternal associate. Just like Nanda Jasoda, they're eternal associates of Krishna. Dasarath and Kaushalya are eternal associates of Ram. There's nothing lacking or becoming greater than what they were in them. They're perfected beings, eternal associates. So if they're making a comment like this, it has something to do with the Leela itself. Now, if in the Leela itself, Ram doesn't need his father's protection. The Leela, he's the supreme personality of Godhead, but he's being protective of his son, and so he's hesitating on the basis of that parental affection. But in fact, there's nothing but full confidence. So he's trusting Vashishta, because Vashishta says, no worries. Vishwamitra can destroy anybody. He doesn't need Ram. and he'll protect Ram. It'll be good for Ram. He'll get the blessings of this wonderful, exalted personality, Vishwamitra. Send him. And if you don't, you got a big problem. So he was compelled by, in past time, in the Leela, by the Kshatriya yielding to the wisdom of his Brahmin priest, Vishishta. It's Leela related. That's my understanding of their emphasis. Now, whether Sri Vaishnavas see things that way or not, I can't say. They may not see things that way. Maybe I'm just superimposing what I've understood from our Gaudiya tradition upon their statement. You want to pursue it a little further? You're okay.
Yeah,
You're not sure.
I'm not sure.
Okay. I'll take a look at a later time and see if I can, just in a separate sidebar, have a conversation with you about this. Snehavalli really likes to get clarity on something that seems to be uncertain or unclear. And she keeps going with it until it's clear. That's her nature. I appreciate your nature. So let me take some time to try to look carefully at what's being said. There may be something further in Govindaraja's writings, and I'll get back to you if I come up with something with greater clarity. How about this? Because of my time, I'm learning a lot about time management while preparing for all of this, because I'm not so well read in Ramayana as I am in the Bhagavatam compared. And I'm not in touch with the commentaries as much as there are others in touch with the commentaries. So if you do this, you put it in writing, what your question is specifically, and I'll pass it by those that are more familiar. One of those that's more familiar is the one who's translating Govindaraja's commentary. And it's a refined question, and it's worthy of a refined answer to the refined question. So put it in writing, and I'll pass it by 3 or 4 people and see what I come back with. My experience in doing this is I get a few different answers, but that's okay. Then, take the essence of those few different answers and we'll give you an answer. But I can just even forward what they say. I'm taking seriously your question.
Okay. Thank you.
Put it in writing so it's real clear, so that just somebody that's not sitting here in the room can understand it. And I'll see what I can gather from these well-read persons. There's a question back here.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Thank you for the wonderful class. I have a general question about Ravan, not related to the class today. But is there any significance about his 10 heads? Sometimes in folklore, I could say, or just stories, people give some kind of commentaries about those heads. But is there any authorized commentary about that?
There probably is, and I don't know what it is. Send me a little note, and I'll inquire from those that are well read and see if they have an answer to your question.
And there was one more question from today's class, not very important, but just out of curiosity. Like Agastya Muni, in one of the slides, you said that he cursed Tadka to become a man-eater person.
Yeah, why did he do that?
Why would he do that? I mean, that would cause so much harm to sages and people.
Yeah.
It was a curse to not her, but to the sages living in the forest. And
No. I mean, they were on the receiving end, but it wasn't to the sages. It was, I'm cursing you so I'll get at the sages. That wasn't. They were put at risk because of that curse. So why did he put them at risk? That's your question. broaden that question and ask the question, why very powerful personalities who are very qualified in the mode of goodness and austerities and have powers because of both, why would they curse people anyway? And when they curse people, then it does mean some people are going to be put in harm's way by that curse, not just that person. Why would they lose it and curse somebody? And then other people are put in harm's way because of the curse. It's, in a broader sense. One answer to that is, the bigger question: why creation? So why does he create it all? And then then the subset of that is, why do people who are like Agastya Rishi do things that, people have to suffer? And even good people have to suffer. So what, why creation? Why did Narada curse Nalakovaramani Griva become trees? Now, they weren't hurting anybody. Anyway, there's a plan of the Lord. And the will of in this case, it's Ram will come and destroy you. And to not have to destroy her right then and there, Ram will come to destroy you. So it's playing into the part of Ram's Leela. Now, was he thinking, hey, this is a really good opportunity to play into Ram's Leela. I'll curse her to become a Rakshasi, and then Ram will come and kill her. Then Ram's Leela will be really nice because he gets to kill her, and everyone's going to read it in Ramayana. That was a good plan. When it's not an easy yoga asana. It's like really uncomfortable to really. He cursed so that Ram's Leela could be fulfilled, because she would go around doing bad things and Ram could come and kill her. So some people they were expended because Ram's Leela had to be performed. What do so it's part of the plan of the Lord that when not bad personalities, but great personalities do things that don't make sense to us. They seem like they shouldn't be done, in fact. There's somehow some plan of the Lord. Like the rise and fall of empires. And when empires rise, there's some powerful leader or leaders and generations of leaders that are very powerful. And those powerful leaders often do very cruel things. So why does God allow that? And then you could say, well, they're not rishis like Agastya. They have a different mode of nature operating in their life. So why does God allow that? Why does he, Super Soul has to sanction. There's some bigger plan of the Lord having to do with the moving forward of the destructive force of time. And instruments of that destructive force of time are in Lord Vishnu's hand. And he sanctions. doesn't sit right in the heart. But because we have our sense of what's right and what's not right. And it's in the category of that's not right. Something else? You have something over here.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. One question on book distribution topic that came up. One thing that comes to my mind is distributing smaller books of Srila Prabhupada and including the Bhagavad Gita in modern times is, we find it a little easier, but my question is mainly about the Srimad Bhagavatam and Chaitanya Charitamrita, which are big sets. And is there a way in, because these are all available online, and I myself use the online Veda-based resource almost exclusively. Is there a guidance or something when we go and distribute or try to distribute these sets? I mean, to devotees, it's easier because they welcome the sets as the literary incarnation of Krishna, so they happily take it. And most of the devotees already have it. How do we, is there anything you could share, Maharaj, or any about how to distribute these bigger sets, especially on Bhadra Purnima and etc.? And then on the other hand, when we hear, for example, Vaisheshika Prabhu, just sort of raises funds for 5,000 or 10,000 sets on one day, I just feel like anything, Maharaj.
Look like the 4th of July fireworks in your question. Kind of like all over the place. Your focus is what to do to distribute sets.
Yeah.
But then there's all kinds of other things, the online, and people already have them, and there's.
I'm giving the reasons why all the sort of negating reasons why it becomes harder to do that. Either devotees have it, or for others it's available online.
Well, some people like digital. Some people like to hold the book in their hand, and some people like both. And another one is just in your computer. I don't go online. It's in my computer, and I refer to it all the time. But I'm a sannyasi and I travel. But I like holding a book. So, what can be said so that the obstacles are surpassed, and people invite Bhagavatam into their home? What are some of the talking points, I guess, which you're asking? The king of that is Vaisheshika Prabhu, and I would suggest that you could write a letter to Vaisheshika Prabhu and ask him to address your question, because he'll probably say, just join one of our seminars and how to do it, and you'll learn everything how to do it. So don't have to ask him because he's busy. You could just join one of his seminars and do it. Specific for Bhadra Purnima, it's the benefit that comes from that verse from the 12th canto. But then in general, even if it's not Bhadra Purnima, it's just the benefit of having Bhagavatam. And if each of us are different, some persons it's their verses and verses and verses glorifying having Srimad Bhagavatam in one's home, and one's life is complete, and without it, one's life is not complete. We have this one literature, and the glorifications of Srimad Bhagavatam are inspiring. And if you're inspired by that, you inspire others by what inspires you. And that's the principle that I like. Not just you get this bonus if you have Srimad Bhagavatam and gift it to someone in Nima. But some people like those benedictions. Some people just like the simple glorification of Bhagavatam. and how lives have been transformed. Personally, I can say my life has been transformed by Srimad Bhagavatam, by Prabhupada, Mahamantra, and Srimad Bhagavatam. And that's what's inside. That comes out. So when that comes out, you may want to, but tips and things to say or inspirational points to make by Sheshik Prabhu and his team. Okay, I'm going to. Thank you very much. To the Prabhupada Ki Jai.